Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming event, Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives, a virtual retreat to transform fear, embrace your shadow, and activate your soul in extraordinary times. I'm Lisa Bunnies, and I'm really excited to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Wendy Rosa and address questions about her upcoming 7-session virtual retreat, Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives, which begins Wednesday, May 27th. And a little later, we'll talk about how you can participate in this online retreat, even if you can't attend the live virtual sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Wendy Rosa is an internationally respected intuitive energy healer, speaker, teacher, and author. For the past 2 decades, she's offered private sessions, education, and training programs for spiritual and personal growth for those wanting to develop their intuition, clear their blocks, and experience personal transformation. She's the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies and the Intuitive Healer Training Program. Wendy has filmed 2 programs for mindvalley.com spiritual growth channel, Soulvana, and she's a mindvalley.com author whose book, Energy Healing Through the Chakras, A Guide to Self-Healing, is an Amazon bestseller. And in just a few minutes, we'll take your questions. But first, I want to welcome Wendy, who's going to begin our time together by leading us in an opening meditation. Welcome, Wendy. It's so great to see you again.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody. Let's begin with arriving and closing our eyes and grounding into this space together. So take some deep breaths and allow yourself to settle into your body. Feel your body, feel your legs, feel your feet. Feel your heart. Feel your front body, just as if you've engaged in the world and have been continuing to engage in the world through your front body. And then start to sense, feel, and connect to your back body. Almost as if you are leaning back in your awareness to your back body. And as you lean back into your back body, we're going to envision this beautiful grounding cord, nice and secure around your hips and your sit bones, the front of your low belly and the back of your spine, the low spine, your sacrum and tailbone area. That's the top of your grounding cord, and we'll just envision this strong tree trunk that extends down deep through the layers of the earth into the core of the planet, where you are energetically connected to stability, trust, safety, belonging, and being here in the present moment. Being present in your body. And then we'll lean back into this beautiful waterfall of grace, inviting a shower of divine light through your being, through the crown of your head. And as it flows through you and around you, take some deep breaths and just let go, and with your exhales, let go of anything, stress, tension, that doesn't need to serve you, that doesn't need to hold on. As you open up to receiving an inflow of grace. Your grounding cord beneath you and an infusion of love and divinity showering you. And that through your breath, you're becoming more grounded and present here And through your breath, you're also receiving light, healing, grace to support you in your human existence. I pray here as we gather together in this space for this Q&A call that we're held in the highest of each of us here, and we're in the highest of the planet, that our work personally, showing up and doing deeper consciousness work within us, supports the greater good of humanity. I pray that we're held in this container, this sphere of grace, in protection and in light. And I pray for a blessed and powerful Q&A session here today. Thank you, God. So be it. And so it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for setting the space. We have the rest of our time together to take our viewers' questions for Wendy as we prepare for her upcoming virtual retreat. Again, that's called Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives, and it begins Wednesday, May 27th. If you want to check out the website and learn more about the 7-session event, please visit energyhealingvirtualretreat.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get into some questions. If you have a question for Wendy, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to read them aloud. And let's start out with a really foundational question that a lot of people are asking, people who are perhaps new to your work or the idea of being an empath. Let me read 2 different versions of the similar question. One, Elizabeth wants to know, how do you know when what you're feeling is yours or coming from something outside? And then Joan takes it a little differently. She says, what's the difference between projection and empathy?
Yes. So to answer this question, I'm going to explain a little bit more on a foundational level for all of us, but particularly empaths and sensitive and intuitive people. So in the lower half of our energy system, from essentially the root chakra area of the body, which is at the tailbone, we hold in this area of our body information about what was normal for us at a very young age. And part of that information is what was I marinating in on an energetic level in my family of origin? Was it common for me to be in an environment where people around me were projecting energy? Was it normal for me to be in an environment where there was unpredictability and I didn't know, where I was in relationship with time and space and energy around me? Was I raised in an environment where people weren't demonstrating boundaries or showing me as a sensitive being how to have my own boundaries? The reason I'm answering this question and giving you this foundation is because in the lower half of our energy body, specifically the first 3 chakras of our body, we hold programming on how we as sensitive beings are going to be in relationship with energy in our life. And it has to do with what we marinated in our early years, 0 to 7 years old. And so if it's normal for me as an intuitive and empathic being, not knowing that's what I was as a child, just sensitive, that's basically what we were, very sensitive. When we're raised in environments as sensitive children, to not know ourselves, essentially, to not be given permission to feel ourselves or validate our experience or know what our emotions are or how we feel in ourselves energetically. And instead, we're raised in patterns where it's normal to be able to absorb energy around us. Then we repeat that later in life. And it becomes a pattern that people who are sensitive and empathic start to be overly empathic overly responsible for other people's energies and not understanding or developing boundaries in being able to discern, is this my energy or is this someone else's energy? We don't have that boundary formed, and therefore it's very difficult to understand or to know, is this my energy or is this not my energy? And so to answer this question requires the permission and the new, I'm going to say this in this way, it's a new teaching, and it's not a new teaching to your adult self, but it's a new teaching to the inner child, that it's absolutely okay for you to feel your feelings and to have your feelings and to be able to process your own feelings. That's how we know the difference between our emotions and someone else's, or our energy versus someone else's projection. We have to get big in ourselves and be able to make space for our own feelings and our own energy first, to feel our power, to feel our emotions, to feel how we feel, to feel the history of what we haven't processed in ourselves energetically. We need permission and space to feel that in order to be able to discern, this is my emotion versus this is someone else's projection. Another way of saying this is, if I don't know what my anger feels like or my deeper rage feels like, if I don't know those feelings for myself, I'm not going to be able to discern, is this mine or is it someone else's? Inevitably, I'm just simply going to absorb and feel the energy of others, and it's going to trigger my deeper self, my deeper emotions, my deeper truth. It's going to trigger those feelings. And this is actually a very important question, because it is leading into the foundation of what I'm going to be working with in this retreat. A lot of our work as empathic beings is, how are we going to embody and identify the raw, real truth that exists in our power of why we're here as empathic beings and how to have our boundaries. But to do that, we need to clear energy, essentially, unprocessed energy, emotional energy in the lower half of the body that we're holding, that's blocking us from being embodied as empathic beings in the world.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I think we got us off to a really good start here. Let's move to a question that relates to the meditation that you led. There's no name attached to this, but I think a lot of people have this question. Can you please explain more about the front body and the back body, and where we should be? This person says, I'm very visual, and I imagine the divine light pouring down through my crown chakra, central channel, and into Mother Earth. And sometimes I hear you say, breathe into the back body. Is the breath coming from the back or still down through the top? And is our authentic self ideally to rest in the middle? That's a lot of questions, but I think you get the overall picture.
Yes, great question. Yes, it's to ideally illuminate from the middle is the answer. We spend a lot of time in our front body as people. Everybody does. We all and this is very generally speaking here, typically we spend a lot of time and energy in the front of our body, and that's essentially our ego consciousness. Let me fix this, let me problem solve this, let me understand, that's frontal lobe, let me organize my thoughts, my experience, and figure out how to problem solve this situation. Back body is about, how am I leaning back into my source, my spirit, my higher self, or divine grace. All are one. How do I lean back into that channel of infusion of divinity and grace? Allow that to source me, give to me, nurture me, receive. I'm receiving through that back channel, and it's nourishing the backside of the body. Now, to be clear, the central channel in the body, the pillar of light, I should say, in the body, central channel is a thinner meridian it runs in front of the spine energetically. But when we allow and pray for grace to flow in through the crown of the head and earth energy to rise up through the grounding cord, we're actually nourishing that central channel. And the nourishment of that central channel, that light and presence, it's the presence of your soul, is illuminating beyond the channel, forming forming a luminosity, and that's the pillar. The pillar is the illuminance of the overflow of the presence of you and your soul infused by grace, and that creates this pillar in the central channel or in the center of the body. So ultimately that pillar is the front and back side. So when I'm saying lean back into the back, I'm not saying, and I should clarify this, I don't mean to say disconnect from the front. That's not what we're necessarily doing when we lean back, but it is about bringing awareness to your back body that you have a back side. You have a back aspect of your pillar and your chakras in the back side, and those parts of you need sourcing and nourishment so that you can ultimately be whole, feel your wholeness, and that includes the front and back side of your pillar and your center. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for that. This next question from Lynn is, again, I'm trying to take questions from that a lot of people are asking, and Lynn puts it the most succinctly. A lot of people want to know this. How do I deal with all of the pain and fear of the collective, my own family's issues and difficulties, and all of my own fear and stress related to the impact of COVID-19 that it has on the world and myself? It feels totally overwhelming and impossible to contain.
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, overwhelm means a lot of emotions all at the same time. I'm feeling everything all at once. When that happens, we need boundaries. And that's probably first and foremost. Is boundaries might be, I need to stop looking at the news today, tomorrow, this week. I need to take a break. I need to detox my mind, my eyes, my brain. I need to take a brain break. I need to go do something that's going to connect me to nature and to what's present in my life, my children, my partner, my friends, whatever it might be that's just present in your reality. That's the first thing, is to instill some appropriate boundaries for yourself based on your capacity. And you are still a great, beautiful, good person if you turn the news off. It doesn't make you a bad person, a disconnected person. In fact, it supports you in being more discerning with what is true for you and what is right for you. The other part to mention is and this is in my opinion, and I'll say this is my opinion. This is not truth. This is not. Let me say it this way. It's not. It doesn't have to be your opinion. We don't know what the truth is. There is so much facts and evidence and truth and information that completely contradicts itself in the world right now around COVID and everything that's going on. The only truth that is true is what's true for you. And so to get there and to manage the overwhelm, my recommendation is to unplug and get grounded in yourself. And you can implement that grounding cord image that we started with. You can lean back into your waterfall of grace and let your body replenish. When we get overwhelmed, when we are not sourced, when we are disconnected from receiving, from higher source, from replenishment, from giving ourselves deeply on a soul level, the soul food that we need to reconnect to ourselves. It may be necessary to ground yourself and disconnect from, the world for a moment, for a moment of time, meaning social media, whatever it might be, and journal. And just write out what's true for you in your family, in your life right now. What you might find is that everything in your immediate situation, you're okay. Things are okay to a degree. Maybe it's not perfect, and maybe people are sick and hurting and dying, and that is part of the reality. But sometimes when we get caught in everybody's story about it, that's an indication that our boundaries are not clear, and that we need to implement some boundaries for ourselves and for our own human system, our own body and our energy field. What is my boundary with all of this information, so that I can discern how I'm going to exist in relationship with this information? That requires us to get anchored in our own truth and what's true for us. And again, journaling is a really great way to sit down and get grounded and, write out what's coming through for you about what you need for your own energy system. So that's where I would start, is tending to you, having some boundaries, finding yourself, getting grounded in yourself, go out into nature. Those can be very useful in discerning the world's energy versus yours.
Okay, thank you for that. We've also got some questions from people who are fairly new to this, even thinking about being an empath or intuition. And Donna's got a question that says, how experienced would a person be needing to be in regards to being familiar using intuition via body check-in? I'm not used to checking in with my body in this regard.
So in this case, it's not necessarily, well, let me say this. Everybody is intuitive on some level for the most part. It's one of our natural senses to be intuitive, to be in tune with ourselves and to have that sense. But we get programmed out of it. We get conditioned out of it. We get trained to prioritize the mind and reason and what makes sense and what are other people's expectations of us in existing in the world. And so what happens here is that part of this is the work we're doing in this particular retreat is not about that you have to be in full practice of your intuition, but rather a willingness to tune into yourself and be guided and be open to being guided into deep healing and meditation to be able to clear and release energy. Part of that means that we have to be vulnerable, to be willing to be vulnerable, that there is stuff that I'm holding onto, not in my head, but in my body, that I am willing to bring breath to, bring awareness to, drop into, and that I'm willing to have my emotions. I'm willing to make space for the tears or the anger or sometimes the shame of having these feelings to begin with. That sometimes happens when we're trained out of having a feeling. We have shame about the feeling. But they're normal, they're human, and we do need to feel them in order to process them, or at least bring our breath to where we're holding that energy in the body and, be guided through the process of clearing that energy through the body. So it's not that you need to, be an expert or even an intermediate in knowing about your intuition. But it is about the willingness to be vulnerable and willing to heal, willing to breathe into what's held in the body. And for some people, that is really vulnerable. If you're brand new and you haven't, processed a lot of history, then the biggest fear is going to be that this is, there's a lot here. There's a lot to process. But I'll tell you that fear is the first step. Fear of just being willing to say, okay, the fear is here, and I'm still willing to breathe into my body. I'm still willing to acknowledge that there's energy here that I need to let go of and clear, because underneath that, I'm a powerful being, and I'm worthy of my groundedness, and I'm worthy of being in my body, and I'm worthy of my intuition. Those are underneath the energy that is here to be cleared. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. In fact, it leads us into a deeper question, a similar subject. But Marina is saying, I've been struggling with accepting that I am a highly sensitive person. If it means giving up my stoic strength, my numbness to become even more sensitive, becoming more in tune with my sensitivity seems dangerous when the world is going through such trauma.
So sometimes I wonder if some people resonate with different terminology. Highly sensitive people, sensitive, HSP, a sensitive, an empath. There's all these different terms that are out there, and I just want to get underneath that for a second to answer this question, which is that sensitive means sensitive when we're talking about energy, and we're talking about feeling energy, and we're talking about empaths. It's actually the power of the second chakra. And the power of the second chakra, that is our empathic power center in the body. It's one of them, one of the empathic power centers. This chakra has lots of jobs. One of them is that it feels what's going on beneath the table. And the other power of this power center is vulnerability. Being able to feel what is raw and true and real for ourselves on an emotional level. So another way of saying this is that the second chakra is our power center for our emotions and being able to feel the emotions. This power center has been, on a societal level, on a historical level, on a collective level, has been shamed. We've been told in this area of our body that we are wrong, that creativity doesn't have a place in success or productivity in the world. We've been told our feminine is bad and wrong and invalid. We've been told, men have been told to grow up, don't cry, don't be a sissy, be a man. We've been trained and shamed out of the power of this power center that we don't even recognize it as power. We've been told it's weakness. And yet the power of being in this power center is the ability to stand in our not necessarily our overly empathic, but in our empathy. And for someone to be, for us to be in our stoic sense means I can't drop into the empathy or the ability to meet someone on their level and to hold space for where somebody is in their emotions and their sensitivity. So me and my second chakra power would say, I get it. I know where you are in your anger and in your sadness and grief and in your sensitivity. I get it completely. I've been there. It makes sense that, this situation would have happened and you would have had that reaction. That absolutely makes sense to me. And that's empathy. And that's power in the second chakra. Now, earlier I said, when we drop into this area of our body and we allow ourselves to have our feelings, and we know our feelings, and we understand and have compassion for our own emotions, we build boundaries energetically. We know what's mine versus what's someone else's because we can feel the difference. Because if I feel my feelings and let myself have my feelings, I'm going to know in myself what my energy feels like versus someone else's. Now, this takes time. This is an iterative process of developing and cultivating that sense in ourselves. But dropping into our sensitivity and being highly sensitive people requires us to be in tune with our own emotions so that we can anchor in and drop into the power of the lower chakras and have empathy, not overly empathic. Overly empathic means I can't feel my feelings. Nobody gave me permission to. I need to be tough. I need to shame myself out of my emotions and stand back in myself. And therefore, when emotions come in my direction, I have no way to deal with them. I have no idea. And so it feels like blasting. It feels like bombarding. It feels like I'm too sensitive for the world. When in fact, when we have our center on an emotional level, and this is training, we have to learn how to develop presence in the lower body. When we do that, which is what we're working with in this retreat, when we do that, we start to develop our strong sense of radiance, empowerment, and presence in the world as sensitive and empathic beings. And we can put down the sword. We can put down the shield. We can allow ourselves to be fully present here as somebody is having a feeling and know that I'm okay as other people are having their emotions. It's not a problem. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you for that. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Wendy Rosa, learning about her upcoming virtual retreat, which is called Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives. And it begins Wednesday, May 27th. And please log on to energyhealingvirtualretreat.com if you want to check out the details and to register. So Wendy, because this is a little different than a typical Shift Network course that takes place over the course of 7 weeks or whatever the length of the thing is, this is different. This is a virtual retreat that it's 7 sessions over a 5-day period. And again, for those of you who are interested in the details of this, go ahead and check out the website. But Wendy, I wonder if you can give us just sort of an overall idea of how the retreat will be different from the classes.
Absolutely. So I'd love to just say something about how this retreat formed, which is that, I do obviously have run courses for the Shift Network, and I did a course in the winter. And when COVID happened, I started to realize, I had to transfer a lot of my trainings into a virtual format. And I started to realize that when I did that, and my programs were being, my in-person ones were being canceled, that there is incredible value in coming together in a retreat format in a deepening experience where you go into a process in a concentrated amount of time to where your system can relax and release and let go and trust and drop in to deeper healing. And that's what happens when we go on retreats. We are able to leave our home and go to a different setting and be held in a container to where our body is willing to let go, but also we're able to feel ourselves and get connected to ourselves. Well, obviously, as we're staying in place, staying in grace, staying at home and social distancing, what had happened is that I realized that this need was still there, the opportunity to go into a deep process. And so what formed were longer, a full day or several hours of a day, and longer periods of time when we can go into these deep healings where we can learn, and also not just learn on a cognitive level, but be taken into a process and an experience of being guided into your interior to be able to heal and let go of energy as divine space is held for you and as the retreat container was held for you. And so here we are, this retreat was created. And what's amazing about it is I've now run several of these virtual Zoom retreats or online virtual retreats. And what I know now is that when we come together in intention, our hearts and our souls and our spirits span and connect on a cohesive level. And the barrier of Zoom or whatever the box is, our virtual format, can dissipate and connection can happen and heart space can come together. And I have these beautiful healers who are assisting the course. They've trained with me, and they are holding space and infusing prayer into the space for the students, so that we're creating this powerful container of of prayer and divinity and sacred light and healing for you to enter into that space so that your energy system can let go of energy that doesn't serve you and allow you to come into alignment in yourself. Now there's that in conjunction with the support for the empath and sensitive being. I think the number one question always for empaths is, how do I know how do I know my energy versus someone else's energy? Or how do I have these boundaries? Or how do I stop taking on the energy of others? And I said this, in the beginning of the call, in the earlier questions, but this process in the retreat takes you into the how. It's like the questions are so hard to answer in just in a one sentence or two sentences, or this is what you can take home and go home and do. It's not that easy. There's actual healing work that needs to happen in the lower half of the body in order to clear energy that you're holding that's attracting that, other people's energy or the chaos or, the projection energy into your system. That energy needs to be cleared in order for you to come more powerfully into alignment in your lower body. That's deep energy work that we need to do. And space is held in this virtual retreat for you to do that. I believe really deeply that empaths are being triggered significantly right now because they're being called to know more about their gift, to know more about their creative aspects, to have more presence in this world, and ultimately to teach people emotional responsibility by learning how to hold space energetically, by learning how to not take on the energy and hold empowerment in themselves, by modeling boundaries. But to get there, we have to learn, we've got to do our healing. We have to learn how to do it for ourselves by healing energetically in our body. So we're doing these 7-session module, 7 sessions over the course of 7 days to dive deep into this clearing work. And there'll be some exercises to work with each day. Information will be given to you as supplementary information to support you during the 7-day process. The assistants are holding space. I'm holding space. And it's just a powerful container for you to enter into to experience deep healing in this 7-day process. So I'm excited about it, and I do hope that you are open and willing and wanting to join this powerful 7-day healing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now we do have time for a few more questions, but before we get into those, I want to give just a few more details about the retreat itself. Once again, it's called Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives, and this is going to be a one-of-a-kind 7-session over 5. It's a week, but it's 5 specific days, and you're going to be working with Wendy under her expert guidance, where you'll receive, as she mentioned, energy healings to hold energetic and physical boundaries as an intuitive or an empath, which will help to transform emotional imprints to accelerate healing and activate your soul. The 7-session virtual retreat begins Wednesday, May 27th, and runs over the course of 5 days. And while we recommend attending them live, if at all possible, because that will ensure the greatest benefit. If you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all handouts on your retreat homepage. Also, those recordings, unlike a normal Shift Network course, which is a 24 to 48 hour turnaround, we're going to sort of put a rush order on them so that if you do miss one of the classes, you'll be able to catch up quickly. So we're doing everything we can to help you really give yourself this time and really immerse into this. Also, as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can connect with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives bonus collection. First, you'll receive a 3-part collection of teachings, guided healings, and energy clearings with Wendy entitled Keys to Living as an Evolutionary Empath. Then you'll get a video teaching from Wendy called Detox Patterns of Over-Responsibility, Shame, and Guilt to Find Your Emotional Center. And you'll also receive a guided audio healing and teaching from Wendy entitled Clearing Negative Beliefs and Energy Blocks in the Body. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Thursday, May 21st, you'll receive this extra gift, and that is an audio teaching from Wendy entitled Empowering the Empath, an Energetic Detox and Centering for Sensitive Beings. So, Wendy, before we get back into questions, because there's plenty waiting, what are you most looking forward to sharing in this brand new upcoming virtual retreat?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking as you're talking that there's the part that I love, and students over many of my courses and offerings, affirm, is that when it's the power of the healings that happen, and how energy work. In many cases it clears. How do I say this? It clears through time and space. So things we might be holding on an energetic level that might take a long time to process through, when we step into the path of identifying where energy is held in the body, and we start bringing consciousness to that and start moving and clearing the energy, which I'll guide you through in the virtual retreat, we're really moving a significant amount of history, energy held in the body. And so one of the things I'm always excited about is holding those deep guided healings and taking people through that journey and being attuned to the students and what's coming through. I tap into my divine channel, and I'm listening and I'm receiving, but I'm also very in tune with what the students are needing on a collective level. And so it's in many cases, it's a very personalized retreat. And at the same time, it's universal because we're all holding so many of the same type of collective and karmic wounds in our system. So I'm just excited to really hold that deep space. And in the Facebook group, I also wanted to mention that I have 8 assistants who will be in there just really supporting you as questions might arise or sharings might come up in the Facebook group and in discussion. There's just a lot of support in this container, more so than I've had in previous courses. And so I'm really excited about just creating this beautiful retreat space for you. So.
Okay, great. These are some interesting questions coming in. These are people who really want to attend, but they've got some concerns. For example, Darlene says, your virtual retreat is an answer to my prayers to find a way to release pent-up, powerful emotions that are damaging me internally because I don't know how to safely express them. The problem is I have ADHD, so it's hard for me to focus on something that isn't an in-person, one-on-one conversation. So I'm concerned that I'll sign up with good intentions, but then flake out on showing up for the sessions. Do you have any advice or suggestions for people like me?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story real brief. I had a friend once who was diagnosed as a child with ADD, I think it was ADHD. And then the therapist who was working with them at the time, with the parents at the time, said, put him into drumming. And they said, what? Put him into drumming. Let him become a drummer. And he took to drumming. To this day, he's a professional drummer. And I'm telling you this story because for any of us, anyone who has that ADD, ADHD, movement is going to be part of your learning and part of your integrating life experience and getting into the pranic flow. Prana is energy in the body, because a lot of times ADD, ADHD is prana in the body that is, is somewhat erratic in the system. And so my recommendation to you is, if you can, go on a walk and listen to the meditations. You can join the call, put your headphones on, go for a walk, or stay at home and maybe do some movement, do some yoga, do any kind of movement that your body wants to somatically do to, as you're listening to the meditations. And I don't want to frame ADD, ADHD as wrong or bad or a problem, because it's not, certainly in this case with doing deeper healing work, but to bring it in. It's part of you. It's part of why you're here. Let's bring it in. What does it need? Maybe it needs movement. So just, you don't have to, I'm going to say, sit and close your eyes and meditate. And you're going to translate that as, okay, I'm going to put my earphones on and I'm going to go for a walk while I'm listening to Wendy. You're going to self-correct what I'm saying to meet the need of the part of you that has creative energy and prana moving through your body. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think so. And let's address another issue here that a couple people are asking about. Specifically, Jess here said, I would like to take the course, but I'm electrically sensitive and can only do about 1 hour a day in front of Zoom or streaming computer time, or I don't feel well. What do you recommend for people who have that sort of electronic sensitivity?
That's such a great question, and I'm so happy this question came up. Okay, in April, I taught 5 weekend retreats on Zoom, 4.5-day retreats on Zoom for some other things. And when COVID happened, the questions were, how am I going to be on Zoom for that long? How am I going to be on the computer for that long? And I'll tell you something. When you get into the divine space and the divine field and get into the alignment and into the energetic space, watch what changes. The Zoom experience, the virtual experience, the online experience shifts. The power of the healing work supersedes the issues with the internet. And I will tell you that I'm saying this, but if I had every single student on here saying this who has been in my courses, they would say the exact same thing. They would say, I never thought I could stay on Zoom for a 3-hour class twice a day. 2 of my retreats were 6 hours a day, and all of them would say, holy cow, that went by so quickly. I had no idea. It didn't even feel like 3 hours or 6 hours, because we were held in a divine frequency, in a divine space in it, that it was so powerful and so potent that the energy held each student in the process. And so I would be curious to know, once you go into it, how you feel differently about the virtual format when there is sacred space held for you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Let's see. There was another question here. This is from Benita, who says, what should we bring to the retreat? What's required of those attending? Is there a prerequisite? What do we need to know before we show up?
Yes, great question. So we will be sending an email about what you might, some little logistics and ways to take care of yourself during the retreat process. One of the things I would recommend is, and this will be put into the email, which is that you treat this as a retreat. I do know that, there's sometimes children at home. I'm a mother of a small child. I get that the multitasking and the need to, tend to things at home. And if you are able, my recommendation is to clear your calendar and not put anything extraneous onto your calendar other than your basic needs. And for some of you, you are going to be juggling parenting or caretaking, and that's okay. You can work with that. You can work with being a parent or being a caretaker in your home life and do this retreat at the same time. But anything else beyond that, anything else that, might come in as clutter or, whatever you don't really need to be taking care of and is extra in your schedule, clear it. And treat this retreat week as your time to go deep into your healing and to to take care of yourself and experience deep energy clearing. You'll also be given the opportunity to set an intention for yourself for the retreat. We'll talk about that next, when the retreat starts. But really defining what it is that you want to get out of this experience. I'll tell you what we're offering, but you're also, I'm 50%, you're the other 50% in terms of how much are you going to set for yourself and take this opportunity for yourself and transform with it. And what's the intention you're going to set for yourself? The other thing I'd mention is I do recommend that people, sort of organize your meals. What are you going to prepare for yourself in terms of food and making sure you're nourished? Do you have to do a cleanse? No, you don't have to do a cleanse. Do you feel inspired? That's I'm not going to be advising that or even suggesting it, but sometimes that question comes in when I'm doing a retreat. Should I? I would say talk to whatever practitioners you're working with. If that's appropriate, great. Otherwise, really just take care of your body. Feed yourself well, nourishing foods. Take time where you can be out in nature during the process, during the breaks in between or later in the day. So we'll talk all about that. But otherwise, once you register, you'll be getting the material you'll need to prepare for the retreat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Let's get back into some questions about just basically the subject matter. We've got one from Anita, who wants to know, how can I survive around a narcissistic personality? And this is something a lot of empaths discuss, that they sort of seem like they attract narcissists. It's this symbiotic relationship. So Anita's question continues, we moved in with our daughter and her significant other is a narcissist. We have our own area, but I have to deal with him on a daily basis. I'm having trouble with his energy on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm going to answer this really quickly with a redirect, which is that go to my YouTube page and watch the video on why empaths attract narcissists.
Okay, perfect.
That's how I answer that. Yeah.
Easy peasy. Great. Okay. We've got follow-up questions here from Jess. She's the one who asked about being unable to sit in front of the computer for much longer. She's saying that it's not so much let me read it specifically. Electrical sensitivity is not the same as virtual fatigue for normal people. I've had EHS for over 10 years and just can't do it. It's not the screen time, it's the EMFs that she's concerned about.
So here's my question: did this question come in after my previous question answer?
Yes.
Okay, so she heard my previous answer, which is that in some ways I would wonder the same thing. What would happen if you were held in the divine frequency in space? And I'm curious how that would shift for you, or if it made a difference in the frequency. For some people, I guess my question back would be, how do you take care of yourself normally with online events or virtual events? It might be possible that you, get put the computer on the other side of the room and let it be on speaker, or have some sort of speaker with an extension cord or something like that, where you can separate the computer from where you are in time and space. Also digital speakers sometimes, I know that's EMFs as well, but sometimes a boom or a digital speaker can be helpful if you can stand separate from it and be able to hear and listen. So I'm just offering some technical suggestions. I know in my experience with EMF issues, oftentimes the energy, the issue in itself, the pattern around it does resolve. Let me say it this way. It gets better the more we become grounded energetically from the root chakra into the earth. So building more of that relationship in the body, more earth element into the body, which again is part of this work. So I would say, can you think and feel into how much am I willing to do to get what I need, out of the teaching? How much is possible? So you might have to just feel into some alternative technical ways to work around it to get the healing that you may, be called to or maybe, drawn to. So, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you for addressing that. Let's get back into some more general questions here. This is from Terry, who says, I'm aware of my energy and can feel when a panic attack is coming on. How does one meditate to get through something, an upcoming panic attack?
Yeah, so I personally find it very difficult to meditate if I'm having a panic attack. And I have had I have been prone throughout my life to have panic attacks. And so what I would recommend is that keep in mind this, is that oftentimes panic in the heart is reactive because there's an excessive amount of energy culminating in the heart space. Sometimes that has to do with the rise of issues or unresolved or stress, the rise of that energy up towards the heart. And sometimes it has to do with energy that's coming in and too much of us in the front side of our energy body. And so my recommendation is to start to lean back into your back body and start to visualize grace flowing down into your back. And then what might be helpful is going for a walk. Not sitting and meditating, but visualizing that this light is flowing down and it's sourcing your back body, and you are actually moving and walking and starting to detox to a degree the lymphatic system and your energy body that is, that's accelerated in this moment. An alternative is that if you practice yoga, you can start doing some cat-cows or some movement, some yoga postures to start to shift the energy in your energy body. I would let go of needing to jump to meditation if the body's accelerated and the nervous system is accelerated. What's probably more important is that you attend to your nervous system first. And these are some suggestions to do that. Once you feel calm or, feel settled in the nervous system, you can come into your meditation. And sometimes we don't. The question sometimes for people is, why am I having this symptom? We don't always get the why right away. We might get the why after, aftermath of calming down and coming back into center. And sometimes the why is important and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's so deep that it's more connected to, earlier patterns, younger patterns in the body. So my answer is don't pressure yourself to go into meditation or that you're doing something wrong or that you need to solve the panic and that meditation's the thing to do it. Sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't. And so probably what's more, accessible is to tend to your nervous system in those ways. And then you can find your way to your meditation seat when it feels right.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, looking at the clock here, we are out of time. This is, as usual, Wendy, this has been a fascinating conversation. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your fantastic questions. Once again, Energy Healing for Empaths and Intuitives begins Wednesday, May 27th. And again, you can visit energyhealingvirtualretreat.com to learn more and to register. So before we go, Wendy, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Just that I'm excited to see you in this virtual retreat and hold space for you and support you in going deeper in your energy body. I do hope that you are willing and wanting to be part of this process to take this virtual retreat. I know we can't travel to an exotic place, but I promise I'll bring the divine spirit space and holding and call in the container and the healing that you would experience if you were on a beach somewhere on a retreat with me. We'll do it. We'll do it together. And I'm excited to hold that space for you and be with you. So I look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Thank you again, Wendy. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. It was great spending some time with you today. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was an honor. Thank you.
You bet. And once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to seeing you at this event or perhaps another time. Have a great day, everyone.